Everybody needs their little time out. You know, a little time away from everything where they can be alone with themselves. And I find these little me times to be the most refreshing thing for my mental health. When my work responsibilities and family responsibilities and pretty much everything responsibilities become too hard to bear, I take off work for 3 or 4 days, kiss my wife goodbye and go isolate myself in the woods, accompanied by nothing more than my food, shotgun, fishing rod, and a few clothes and a tent. I don't need more than that. I even know just the right spot, or at least I thought so until my colleague Luke told me about another one that looked great, and a little further away from where I usually go. He showed it to me on the map after questioning me all week long about where I'll be going. Luke's a bit of a show-off, so when I told him I was going to Gray Bear's Lake, he told me he knew something better. Yeah, of course he did. We're talking about the kind of guy who always knows something better than everyone else, so with an eye roll, I kindly told him to show me a better place. Gray Bear is about the loneliest, smallest lake on the map, so I heavily doubted he could beat it. But wouldn't you know it, he did it. With obvious pride moving him, he pointed a spot on the map that I hadn't even noticed before, about 15 to 20 miles north of Great Bear. There was a lake, but God, it was so tiny and I hadn't even seen it before. Luke told me that when he really wanted to be alone, this is where he went. He explained that my truck would lead me about a mile from the small, nameless lake, but that there was a walking trail I could use to reach the secluded open area near the lake where I could raise my tent. Seduced by the idea that I'd have to walk to get deeper and more isolated in the forest, I told him I was going to steal his spot for the weekend, and then I'd beat him up on Monday if I heard anyone coming close during the weekend. I mean, after all, a little change never hurt anyone, right? Thursday came and I finished packing my bags early in the morning. My wife's still sleeping when I kiss her forehead. I leave her a little note with little hearts because, well, I know she loves them, and then I just escape the house with the little belongings and food I decided to carry with me. As I get in my truck, I slap away a spider that was walking on my steering wheel. Teach me a lesson for leaving the window cracked open. My seat's a little humid too from the morning dew. Oh well. I push my Best Scorpions Hit compact cassette into the radio and start whistling along Winds of Change. The morning's still fresh and the sun is barely rising on the horizon as I leave my driveway and let my faithful Ford lead me away from my responsibilities. It takes about 2.5 hours to reach Great Bear, and another 45 minutes of harsh riding in the truck to reach the trail. The path isn't paved, nor is it gravel, it's just dirt and rocks, and the F-150 old suspension is struggling with each big rock and bump I drive over, but I finally make it to the trail Luke told me about. I park my truck about 5 minutes away from there, between a few trees as to keep it relatively hidden. I don't feel like having my truck stolen while I'm in the middle of nowhere, far enough that walking to a payphone wouldn't be a very viable option. Anyway, Luke told me it was safe, so I guess for once, I'll try to believe him. I get off my truck with my tent on my back and a bag of clothes in the other. I'll travel light first, then I'll come back for my food and any other belongings. As I lock the truck, something compels me to take my shotgun too. This place was so deep in the forest, I wouldn't be surprised if I met a bear. I unlock the doors and fetch the shotgun from behind the driver's seat. I load it, and I finally lock and leave the truck. trail is pretty easy to follow. There are bright orange tapes around some branches, just like Luke told me. The clearing's about 15 minutes deeper as well, so at least I know I'm in the right spot. The sun's rising at this point and the heat's making me sweat like a pig, so I'm pretty glad to drop everything to the ground when I reach the clearing. My flannel shirt's sticking to my skin, so I take it off and tie it around my waist for a while. It doesn't take 2 minutes that I'm slapping away mosquitoes like I'm the freshest meat around the place. It's time to go back to the truck and fetch the rest of my equipment. After about 2 or 3 more back and forth between my truck and finally setting up my tent, I'm ready to relax. I stare at my watch for a few seconds and it's not even noon. I could probably go fish. As I reach for my pot of worms and my fishing rod, I think that I see something in the woods. It lasted only half a second, but it was more than enough to send a shiver coursing the length of my spine. Instinctively, I let go of the fishing rod and touch the shotgun strapped to my back. My eyes go left and then right, but still can't find the strange white figure I thought I'd seen. The image burnt behind my eyelids is that of a grotesque creature all draped in white with tiny, black eyes that seemed way too black to be natural. I couldn't see the rest of it, and after a few more seconds of checking around, I realized I probably hallucinated it or maybe even daydreamed it. Maybe I should drink something. After all, it's been a few hours since breakfast, and I did a lot of back and forth in hot, humid weather. I'm probably just a little dehydrated. With a heavy sigh, I pick up my fishing rod from the ground, stick it under my arm, and take a beer can from my cooler before finally making my way to the lake. I stick it in my breast pocket for the time I need to stick a worm on the hook. Then, I throw the line as far as I can, and finally open up my can to rehydrate myself. I mean, there's water and beer, right? It's good, too. It's just enough to be refreshing in this blazing heat. The rest of the day is spent uneventfully, except for that strange feeling of being observed. Each time I go back to fetch a beer, I feel like someone's watching me. After a few hours of anxiety, I decided to just let it go. That maybe it was just the accumulated stress of the last few weeks that was making me nervous. It takes a little over 5 beers and 3 uncooked hot dogs for me to finally feel like I'm good, away from everything and, well, most importantly, alone. Just alone out here with my thoughts. When the evening arrives, I prepare a fire, put my camping grill on top, and make myself a nice, juicy burger. The sun's setting and the mosquitoes are back full on like this morning, and they see me as the best snack around. Once I'm done eating, I douse myself in bug repellent, clean my grill, and settle by the fire with some more beers and my shotgun by my side. Then all of a sudden, branches crack on my left, and I reach out for my shotgun, but the darkness is starting to settle, so I can't see much. On reflex, I make loud noises to scare away whatever's walking around my camp, but I still don't see anything. And after a couple more beers, I finally kill the fire with a bucket of water I fetched from the lake, and some wet dirt for good measure. And after that, well, I'm ready to call it a night. And as I'm about to enter my tent, though, I hear the bushes rustling none too far, and I decided to bring the cooler and the tent with me. I wouldn't like to wake up to a bear having eaten half or all of my food during the night. I'd actually like to keep bear encounters to a bare minimum. And once everything is settled, well, I'm ready to pass out and go to sleep. But for some reason, some strange reason, I cannot sleep. There's still that weird, gnawing feeling in the pit of my guts, like claws sharpening on my organs and telling me I should leave. I feel like me and my tent are being watched, and I still don't know by what exactly. All animals have instincts, and in the end, humans are animals too. Maybe I should trust my guts, but right now, it's late. It's dark, and I can't possibly make it to the truck. I decide to sleep on it and see how I feel tomorrow. After maybe an hour, I finally fall asleep, but my sleep was of short duration because I'm woken up around midnight by something sniffing around my tent. I could tell it's big, and I dare not open a light and scare it. If it's a bear, it can easily tear through the fabric of this tent, and then me. And I watch carefully as the moon reflects its shadow on the tent and realize quickly it's impossible for that to be a bear. The figure is elongated with limbs looking like tree branches, and the noises it's making are nothing I've ever heard of. The sniffing sounds are more like rapid, heavy snores, or something resembling how a boar would sound when it's sniffing. Never heard of a boar being spotted in the region, though. Neither do I remember boar having elongated features. I clutch my shotgun to my chest until I hear it scratch against my tent, a loud, clicking noise coming from the unidentified creature. It almost sounds mechanical, and I feel my body turn cold. Droplets of ice slide down the length of my hairline, and there's a tingling all over my spine. I scream loudly to try and scare it away, and both the noise and the shadows disappear at once. I'm baffled, shocked even, and I wonder if those uncooked sausages I ate earlier are not making me sick. Reason would tell me to stay within the tent, but I need to see for myself if there really was something. So I put on my socks, pants, and shirt, and I get my shotgun. I pick up a flashlight in case I actually have to shoot something. I get out of the tent and use my flashlight around the tent, and I find no steps, nothing that would prove there was anything there. Until I find something that looks like a wooden carving on the ground by the left side of my tent. I pick it up, and it looks like a headless statue of a man. But honestly, for all I know, it might just be one of Luke's broken trinkets that he left there. But I'm still tense as I throw it towards the woods and I look around. There's nothing in sight, and my stomach hurts, and I'm starting to wonder if this trip is really as relaxing as it should be. Putting the blame on the uncooked hot dogs and a high level of stress finally getting out of my system, I get back into my tent and find a little sleep at around 2 a.m. The rest of the night is spent in a deep slumber, and when I wake up, I feel groggy and irritated. But at least the sun is high and I might be able to go hunt. I pick my orange tape, a couple of sandwiches and beers, my shotgun, and enough bullets to kill an entire family of bears before walking into the woods. The first half of the day is as calm as one would expect. So much that I nearly forgot about the events of the night and the day before. So much that I finally started to relax for good. And around 3 p.m., I take a short walking break and sit on a fallen tree to eat a sandwich and drink a beer. And all I've seen was a couple of partridges and hares, and I can't really shoot that with a shotgun. I mean, I would have loved to see a buck or a deer, but it didn't look like I was going to shoot anything. As I shoved the last bite of my sandwich in my mouth, branches crack on my right. I swing around and notice the cutest doe I've ever seen. And for a little bit, I debate shooting it. And then I take aim because that's the best I can get in this forest. Or so I think. I open my eyes and stare at it. And as I'm about to pull the trigger, it turns towards me, and its face turns into something grotesque. It looks like it's melting, its eyes turning a deep, impenetrable black shade, its fur turning a blinding white, and its jaw dislocating into the mouth gape makes that humanoid figure look absolutely disgusting. It was just like the thing I saw for a half a second yesterday. I fall back on my ass in shock, and when I look up, the doe's face is back to normal, and it acts like it didn't even notice me. I feel my heart pump fast, and this time, I decide to go back to the camp. I must have gone further than I thought, because by the time I reach the camp after following my orange tape, it's already getting dark. My heartbeat hasn't decreased, and for the whole walk, I keep looking over my shoulder, feeling like something was stalking me. Feeling like a prey. When you hold a shotgun, well, that's not a good feeling. I reach my camp and think I'm going to pack and go, but then I notice that the zipper of my tent is open, as if someone went in there. And I clearly remember zipping it shut before leaving. I drop my bag on the ground and clutch my shotgun tightly as I circle around the tent. It's been clawed on the side, and I could see my food on the ground. The sun's setting. If I want to leave, I should do it fast. I was not prepared for the sight I was given. As I finally get to the front of my tent, I see that my tent has been filled with copies of that exact same broken trinket I found earlier. Wooden statues painted red like blood, with missing heads and sometimes missing limbs. A few of these look like it's been half burnt, but some look like they've been stabbed, and others, well, they almost look like they're still bleeding. My eyes go wide and I heard a screech laughter on my right side, and when I turn, there it is, in all of its horror movie look glory. It's a humanoid figure, all draped in white with eyes darker than the night, staring right at me. Its mouth gaping so wide that it can't possibly be human, with teeth that reminded me of an anglerfish. Thin, needle-like teeth that could easily tear through skin. Should it decide to attack, my first reflex was to aim and shoot, but again, it disappeared in a cloud of spores. Only to laugh or screech, I'm not even sure. And it was on my left. It circles around me, and any time I shoot, it just teleports to another spot. That is, until it's right behind me. And as I turn around, I barely have the time to shoot, and it pulls my shotgun from my hand, and I could smell its rancid breath an inch or two from my face. It was just standing there, breathing heavily. I don't know what got to me, but I turn my eyes away for a second and see the flashlight on the ground. I quickly bent over and got the flashlight and flashed the creature, who once more disappears with a loud, shrieking noise. And this time, I don't need to be convinced. I don't even look behind me as I start to run, and I could hear the branches behind me crack as if it's running after me. I follow the trail of orange tape and dash to my truck, and 3 times less it took me to take the trip the first time. My hands are shaking as I reach for my keys, and finally, I unlock the truck. And you best believe me, you've never seen a man drive so fast out of the woods, leaving everything behind. I drive all the way home. I embrace my wife as soon as I reach her. She's sleeping, and it's the dead of night when I got home, but she's there. She has a pulse, and well, so do I. Mine's racing. Here's the truth. I have no idea what I saw in those woods that night, or how I even survived it. Hell, I'm not even sure if I'll tell the story to my wife or if I'll just tell her about a bear and how I had to throw everything. I mean, after all, who would believe me?